Okay, everyone wants to know how to get rich, wealthy, or make money. But the problem is they either want to do so without spending any money, which I get it, or going into debt. After 10 years working in banking, after 11 years of being a real estate investor, I'm going to tell you what I learned. You think that you're wasting time in a job or some dead end career, but in fact, what you're actually doing, you're becoming an expert. I'm gonna tell you why I say this. Who do you know that does the same thing that you do right now? Who do you know that if they do the same thing can do it as good as you or better in the same industry or doing exactly the same thing that you do? The one thing I will say is if you can do what it is you're doing on a day-to-day basis, like your career, your job, like what I just said, if you could do it like in your sleep or like on autopilot, then you're an expert and you can make money doing it. So I'm gonna give you an example of Myron Golden because I know you're thinking like, well, my type of job or my type of career, I can't really make that much money doing what I'm doing if I'm an expert. That's a limiting belief. So Myron Golden, if you don't know him, look him up. Myron Golden was a trash man. Trash man, waste management. And now he's a multi-millionaire. He wrote a book about being a trash man and how that transitioned into him doing what he's doing now and becoming an expert. You don't think that what you do as a career on a day-to-day basis that could be super you could not be to someone else. So one of the uncommon ways to wealth that people don't know about is turning their existing career, what they do right now, whether it be a trash man or whatever, into a business and turning that into a way that they generate wealth because generating money through a business allows you to obviously have more time, but you can make more money because what you're doing right now, you're doing it for someone else and you're making them money. But you would be doing the same exact thing for yourself. So you'll be making all the money instead of you giving it to a corporation. So what I mean by that is I was a banker for 10 years and then I got into real estate. I wrote a book about it. So I left my job as a banker. I knew about finances. I knew about financing. I knew about doing loans. I knew about that kind of stuff. I started a real estate company. I started doing flips. I was doing mortgages for people. They started telling me what they were doing. So then I got into the real estate space, went and took a course about it, learned how to do it, and got a mentor. So I became an investor. Full circle, me working in the bank, I learned how to do financial services. I started a financial services company. I wrote a book about real estate investing and lending, which now made me an expert. A lot of times people say, how do you run multiple businesses at one time? The trick to running multiple businesses at the same time, not saying that I did, not saying that everyone does this, but for me, I'm giving you what I did and what worked for me. I got a lending company that focuses on loans for real estate investors or business owners. So SBA loans, business lines of credit, business loans. So I took my banking experience, started my own lending company. I do the same thing I did at the bank, but now it's more niche down into real estate investing because I was a real estate investor for 11 years. And then I worked at the bank. So you see what I mean? I can do both of these companies at the same time or even deal with doing interviews for books or doing my podcast about real estate business and mindset because that's what I did. When you becoming an expert is generally somebody that has a certain amount of hours or a certain amount of time doing a specific thing, which is generally 5 years. So if you've been on a job for over 5 years, doesn't matter what it is, you're technically considered an expert. So you just got to figure out how to, in the book Epitome of the Mind, I talk about how to turn your career or your side hustle or your, whatever you're doing to try to keep the lights on outside of your day-to-day job into an expertise. The book Epitome of the Mind. So if you're trying to figure out how can I do what Myron Golden did, or how can I do what Andre just said that he did with working in banking and now having two multi-million dollar companies that are all in the same space, I do them all at the same time because it's easy for me to do it because I can do it in my sleep. It's something I've been doing. I started working in banking in 2008. So almost 20 years I'm doing the same thing that I was doing the entire time. The only thing is I leveraged my expertise, started my own business, and I started multiple businesses in the same space. I would say different products, but same space, same industry. So one is real estate investing, which I was a real estate investor while working at the bank. One is in lending. One is in financial services, which was the bank, which I did for 10 years. I'm just not using the bank's money anymore to do what I'm doing, right? The conversations, the going after clients, the closing loans, funding deals, literally the same exact thing. So now, if someone calls me about, I'm trying to do a flip, give me some advice on how to flip a loan or how to flip a property. When I worked at the bank, people would come in and sit down and tell me what they tried to do or what they were trying to do. And I gave them a product based on what they were trying to do. Same exact scenario here. You come to me, I'll tell you what we have. And if you're trying to get into real estate as an investor, I got a loan for you. If you're a business owner and you're trying to do something with your business, we got a line of credit or we got a loan for you. So you see what I mean? I don't know how Myron Golden, you know, transitioned from being a garbage man and how that worked for him doing what he's doing. I don't know. But I just heard him say that before, from trash man to something else. I like Myron Golden. I don't know what that is, but look him up. So all I'm saying is people are always looking for uncommon ways to generate wealth because they don't want to go the traditional route. Like me being an investor for over 11 years in real estate, I'm kind of uninterested in it, right? It's one way that you can build wealth, but it's so challenging in doing so, especially if you don't have a lot of money up front. What people want to do, they want to have a path to wealth that doesn't require something like heavy lifting with real estate. You could do that. You're going to need to do sweat equity. Your path to wealth can be simply what I just said. It's not going to cost you any money. It may cost you a little bit of money because you might need to get a web page, maybe a logo. You got to come up with something to form your business. Outside of that, it's not going to cost you $20,000 or $30,000. When I started my lending company, InvestFar Capital, I started it with no cash. Matter of fact, I think the first deal that I did, I didn't even have my company yet. I just networked with a institution and I got that deal funded. That's what gave me the idea. I'm like, this person came to me, and at the time I was using a lending company called Kiavi. And they was like, oh, you know, I forgot how they came across. I think they were referred to me by someone else. And so then I was like, well, let me figure out how I can get this loan funded for this person. So then I just reached out to whoever my, I think it's my broker experience or my loan. Who was it? I don't know who it was. It was somebody at Kiavi who I reached out to, and they told me what to do. And so then I got that first deal funded. And then from that, I was like, you know what? I think I'm on to something. And so then I just did more digging and did more research, and I realized how to become a lender. So that's kind of how I went down that path of doing that. But again, I didn't have any money. I didn't have any money up front. I just had an idea because someone came to me, they needed help, and I was going to try to figure out how to solve that person's problem, which is the root of all businesses. Like a business is basically a company solving a problem for a person or a lot of people. And that's how you get rich. You solve a problem for a ton of people. And so whatever you're doing now, if it's a service-based business, you're probably serving other people in some capacity, which is a business. You need to figure out how you can do that for yourself and then serve more people under your own business. So that's kind of the idea. You know, you could be a school teacher or something like that, but you might be like, well, I can't do anything as a school teacher. What can I do? You could start an educational company, right? If you're a school teacher and say you're doing special needs kids, you could do a whole different business around that. I mean, from a educational system on training how to do that better, or people who are interested in getting into that, how they can do that, or being a consultant for companies who need to do a better job with that, because I heard that's a very intense career field to be in as a teacher in that particular aspect. So you could create a course around streamlining how to do that efficiently or easier. I mean, there's so many different ways. So that's just an example of someone who's in education who is doing something with special needs, how they can leverage that. If they've been doing it 5 or 10 years, how they could turn that into a business. Just because someone is a school teacher doing the same thing you're doing at a different school doesn't mean they're good at it. There's always someone leaving college or in high school that are going to venture into doing the same exact thing that you're doing, because obviously You did it. Somehow you figured out how to get into that space. So there's someone out there that's going to figure out how to do it too. You could be the person that creates courses around that and how to be really good at that and how to, I don't know what's going on in that space. This is just an example of how you can leverage even something like that. Just use Myron Golden. Trash pickup is a nuance. I didn't know that until last year when I saw people having issues living in condos with their trash being picked up. Like the dumpster is like way on the property somewhere, and the trash person can't get through the gate to get to the dumpster because it's locked up. Like there's a ton of things around that I didn't even know about. So that's just something right there where someone can create a job where they go to commercial buildings or go to these 16 unit apartment complexes who might have the dumpster locked up and kind of talk to them about being more efficient, because the reason I even found out, because it made the news. It made the news because the HOA fee, I think the HOA fee had went up to like $12,000 for this particular condo complex, and they were complaining. The waste management was having an issue servicing this particular complex because of where the dumpster was, and so they was going to charge, I think it was more money to that particular complex for them to service that trash, and so that was passed on to the obviously the tenants, and they complained about that. But that's kind of what it was. So I'm just giving you an example of something that just popped into my head, even dealing with waste management. So I'm pretty sure if someone came to me and they wanted my advice on what they could do, I just gave you an example of how I did that with the waste management, right? So it doesn't matter what it is, there's always something that you can leverage to, you know, change your trajectory with how you build wealth, and you don't got to spend a lot of money. So pick up the book Epitome of the Mind on Amazon or wherever, Barnes and Nobles. Look at the book, read the book, and see how you can leverage your particular career right now, or your side hustle, or whatever your 1099 gig is. How can you really leverage that and make more money? That'll break it down. But if you want more advice on that and you want me to tell you how to do that, I can do that. You know what I mean? Like I just gave you an example of how to do that. But I think that's the way that people should start looking at their career. Don't look at your current situation and be like, this is what I'm going to do forever, or this is leading me nowhere. It's actually not. You're actually an expert. Look at yourself as an expert. If you've been doing something for almost 5 years or more, don't be like, man, I've been in this job forever. I'm just, I don't know. Just say you work at Taco Bell. You've been working at Taco Bell 5 years. You a master taco maker, man. You're an expert taco maker. Somebody can go out there and start a food truck business, or that's what happens. Like that's what Mary Callender's was working at a diner, and I think the guy didn't want to serve any more pastries. She just was really good at making this particular cake. So one day she just asked the owner, can I bring my cake in here, or my pie? People really like my pie. And he was like, yeah, I don't care. She brought it in, and everybody kept wanting her pie. It got to the level of where everybody wanted that pie so much, she had to go out and get a conventional oven and put it in her house. And then I think either not her house, or the owner had to go out and get a conventional oven to put in his shop so she could make more pies. That's what I mean. Like, it's that simple. A lady making pies is now Mary Callender's. If you don't know her, look her up. But her pie is in almost every supermarket in the world. I'm just giving you an example of how you can think like what you were doing is not that great. It is. You just got to reframe how you're looking at what you've been doing for a long time. It could be what I just said. You could just be making pies really good. Steve Harvey has given the example of the guy who used to cut hair. His barber used to cut his hair for however many years. He ended up severing ties with his barber because he went bald. He needed, he didn't need any barber anymore. The barber went out and opened up a chain of barbershops. And then he also, I think he even created a yard cleaning business to where he went around and trim hedges, right? You know what I mean? He was good at the lineups, you know what I mean? He's good at doing edge ups, ended up creating a landscaping company. So he's, went from making a couple $100 a week or maybe $1,000 a week to, I think it was like at one point $1 million a month just from him, cutting Steve Harvey's hair. That just turned into something else. So this kind of wants you to think about ways that you can develop your own common but uncommon way to generate wealth. It's a lot easier than people think, but people need to take the time to figure out what their expertise is. And a lot of times, even with me, when I was working at the bank, one of my clients, multi-millionaire real estate developer, he came in and he was like, I was his banker for almost a year and a half, 2 years. He came into my office one day and he was like, you've been working here for a while. You don't seem like you're happy working here. He said, I feel like you're wasting your talent. And I'm like, I don't know what he means by that. But someone else came to me and said the same thing. My manager also said you're wasting your talent. You could be doing something else. He said, man, you speak well, you articulate, you're tall, you're smart. Why are you working here? Why are you still working at the bank? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm just living life. You know what I mean? Like kind of like most people, just I'm lifing. And so when he said that to me, I was like, I don't know. I'm just here, man. It's paying well. I was working in entertainment at the time. If anybody knows, you see my video on values. I value freedom and I value money. I was making both of those working at the bank. Me working at the bank allowed me to go on appointments. I mean, we had Lakers season tickets, Dodger tickets. Like, so I'm sitting in a booth, sitting, in the front row, not courtside, but like lower bowl. So I'm like, cool. I go on, go home and go to sleep. Sometimes, depending on if my appointment went long or whatever, like, because I work close to my place. So it just gave me freedom to be able to do that. You know what I mean? So I'm getting tickets to go to Laker games for free to sit up in a booth fully stocked. I'm taking clients with me, getting bottles, giving clients with their name on it. Like it was just the life. So to me, I was making money. I didn't see how I was wasting my talent because I was doing well at the bank. Could I be doing more in my mind? At the time, I had a clothing brand called Ardenay. And so I had that in the store on Melrose, was selling stuff online. I'm like, cool, man. I'm winning. Not, I'm not thinking that I'm wasting my time. I was kind of annoyed because before that I worked in entertainment and I had hella free time because I was playing ball in a semi-pro squad trying to get to the NBA. And then I was modeling. And then 2008, we had obviously we know what happened in 2008, the recession. Then I had to get a job. And so, one of my friends was working at the bank making like $20,000, $30,000 a month. So I'm like, let me get on. And so that's kind of what happened. That's how I got into banking in the first place. And it still allowed me to be able to get my freedom and flexibility. And I kind of just stayed. So that's kind of how I ended up there. But I'm just saying, like, in my mind, I didn't think I was wasting my talent until my manager came and approached me and said that. And then shortly after that, he quit. And then the guy, my client came to me and one day and was like, man, I want you to come work for me. And I'm like, what? He just called me in the conference room and it's like, man, I see you've been working here for a while. You don't seem like you're happy or whatnot. I feel like you're wasting your talent. How about you come work for me? So here I am in a matter of 6 or 7 months where I've had two people come to me and telling me I need to be doing something else. And so, that encounter with the guy who worked at my client who had the real estate company, I was already doing flips at the time. And, I went by his office one day and he showed me what he was doing and how much money he was making, based on like the projects that he had going. And then he offered me a job basically making the same amount that I was making at the bank. I was like, man, I didn't take it because I would have had to start all over. It was probably a good idea. I probably should have took it, but then I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. So fast forward, I'm just saying like people might see things in you that you might not see in yourself. And even prior to that, I had someone over the course of my time, people have just given me books. So, back to my manager real fast. He gave me this book, something I can't think of it. I'll put it in the description. He gave me a Steve Harvey book. And that book kind of changed my life because it kind of resonated with who I was and what I was doing at the time. And then another person gave me another book. And it was about, a person moving from where they are now doing something that's reaching their full potential. And I'm just like, all these people see this stuff in me that I didn't see in myself. So I'm just saying that to say, like, if you've had different encounters, and that's called synchronicities, you might have people that come up to you and they say things that you might heard over and over again from different people. It's just letting you know that you need to be doing something different. And so, like, these different experiences have led me on my path to starting my own business, writing a couple books, starting a podcast, doing YouTube videos, because that's what everyone saw that I should have been doing, but I didn't see that in myself. I just saw myself trying to get to the league, working in entertainment, doing a clothing brand, the general stuff that everybody thinks that you need to do to build wealth. I didn't see myself doing what I am doing now. And that's kind of why with my podcast, Investing Uncensored, it took me so long to start doing video content, even doing my podcast on video, because I'm just like, I'm just not really interested in that. Like me just sitting behind a camera talking to it, it just seemed weird. For me, just sharing my thoughts in a podcast, to me, that make more sense. It's not about me. It's about the information that I've learned over time and me providing value to people the best way that I can without just showing my face. Even though I was a model for damn near, I did that for 10 years. It was about making money. Like it was, for me, it was a means to an end. Like, I'm like, all right, well, if you want to pay me 10 grand for 30 minutes just to come down here and sit down and take photos, I'm all about it. That's why even with my social media, I have no pictures of me on social media. That's just not my thing. Even if you go and look at my Instagram page, I think I did my Instagram in 2012. I might have like 5 or 6 photos of me just sitting behind a car in a steering wheel, just 1 or 2 photos. I'm just not into it. So that's why it was super hard for me to transition into doing YouTube, even doing my podcast on camera, just because I'm like, man, I don't care. I'm just trying to add value in the podcast. Now the podcast is in the top 1.5% globally, internationally. Like everyone, I'm looking sometimes to look at analytics. I'm in Cambodia or like you know, Africa or Finland. I'm like, who is listening to this in Finland? Like, so to me, it's just mind blowing how you just never really realize that people might value what you have more than you do or more than you think of yourself. This is kind of why I want you to pick up the book and really evaluate, even sit back and think about, take a minute to think about like how many people have came up to you in your lifetime over the last couple 2 or 3 years that are like, hey, you should do this, or why are you doing this? You could be doing this. These people see this, they see your potential, or they see it, but it's up to you. Like nobody can make you reach your full potential. But what that person can do is plant a seed. Even when I was in my 20s, this lady gave me a book called Think Like a Billionaire, Become a Billionaire. My mentor, when I was in my 20s, gave me a book called The Millionaire Mind. I mean, so many people give me books like this. And I'm just like, bro, I'm just trying to hoop. You know what I mean? Or I'm just trying to model. They didn't see what I'm seeing. And even in my, I was probably like 16 or 17, and my pastor was like, you're going to speak to thousands of people. You're going to be in front of a lot of people doing such and such and such. And I'm like, nah, bro, I'm going to the league. Like I might be talking to people on the court or something like that, but I'm not going to be talking about, I thought he was trying to say I'm going to be a pastor or some sort. And, fast forward 30 years later, I mean, this is what I'm doing. So I'm just saying that to say, like, you need to figure out what your expertise is. And once you do that, there's common but uncommon ways, and I keep saying that, for you to be wealthy. You just got to figure out what it is. And the only reason why people say do what you do that you love and you'll never work a day in your life is because when you're doing something that you're passionate about doing, or you do something like your expertise that you've been doing so long that you could do it in your sleep, it doesn't feel like work. Me talking about the stuff that I talk about on podcasts or in my interviews with people, I'm going to tell you something. I don't script. I have never scripted a conversation with anybody that I've interviewed. I don't even have a sheet of paper for the questions that I ask them. I just hop up there and I go. I think the first interview that I did on my podcast, I had 3 or 4 questions that I asked. After that, I don't do it. Now, I'm just telling you guys, I barely even set up anything. When I have an interview with anybody, I just stroll up 5 or 10 minutes before. Sometimes I'm even late. Not saying that, I'm just giving you an example. Like there's no practice, there's no paper, there's nothing. I just stroll up and boom, I just go into it. This is because the questions that I'm asking, I know them because I've been doing this so long. I'm an expert at what I do. And the people that I bring on, they're talking about business, they're talking about finances, they're talking about real estate, they're talking about something like that. But anything in business is going to be the same. Like it's just a different product, just a different person. It's the same, but no one's reinventing the wheel. Anybody that you see that has a successful business, whether it be in real estate, consulting, no one's reinventing the wheel. So when you've been doing something for so long, it's easy for you to just hop up and have a conversation with somebody. So take, for instance, once you figure out what your expertise is, It's going to be real easy if you got an interview or a podcast where you bring on someone talking about something similar to what you're doing in your industry. Any musician can sit down and talk to another musician without having a piece of paper or notes to try to figure out what kind of questions to ask them. It's the same thing. So I'm just saying, people saw that maybe I'm articulate, or maybe I speak a certain way, or maybe I have a certain charisma, or whatever the case is. They saw that I could give to the world. That's my gift. My gift is me being able to not plan, not practice, not do anything, just get up and sit down and do what I do. I'm just a communicator by nature. And so when you're doing podcasts or when you're doing YouTube channels or anything like that, you got to be a communicator if you want to have a good channel, or if you want your message to be delivered properly, if you want people to really get value from what you're doing. I'm just a communicator. And most people aren't really good at communicating. And that's why sometimes it's hard. That's why you don't have that many people that have really high YouTube channels, or doing, entertainment, or doing podcasts, or doing anything like that, because being a communicator is very hard. That's one of the main reasons why relationships don't work, is because people can't communicate. So again, I'm just wrapping this in to say I can do this in my sleep because I've been doing it so long, and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So once you figure out what your expertise is, you're going to be able to do it all the time, all day, because it's not like you're working. I can do a 2 hour long podcast or interview or YouTube video without breaking or without anything, simply because this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm an expert now. This is just kind of what I do. So you can make a lot of money doing that, because it's just like you doing something that you love to do, or it's just like you going to drive to the grocery store or anything else you do. It doesn't feel like work. And that's why people say if you do something you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life, because you really won't. I don't feel like work when I'm doing this. Like, I'm just like, all right, well, this came to mind. I'm gonna hop up here and I'm gonna talk about it. That's probably why I call my podcast Investing Uncensored, because I really don't want to. I really don't want to script anything. I really just want to come and give the unraw, filtered truth about what it is, because there's so many different things on social media or YouTube that's just clickbait and just getting people to come in like, hey, buy my course or do this, and they've never done it. I don't want to be that. That's not what I'm trying to do. I want you to understand, once you get into business, this shit is fucking hard. If you get into real estate, you're not fucking hitting a home run on your first deal. I want people to understand that. And so this is kind of why I did Investing Uncensored, because I'm just like, look, this is what it is. These other clowns not telling you the truth. And that's why you might get some people that are on YouTube getting caught up, that are getting sued, because anybody can do sales. If you become a good sales rep, take a Zig Ziglar course, you can do sales all day. But that doesn't mean the stuff that you're selling, you know what you're doing. Like, you can't sit here and tell somebody, once you get into a flip, you're gonna run into problems. If the budget's 50,000, you might as well go ahead and budget for $60,000. You can't do that if you've never done it. So when you're selling a course, someone buys it from you and they get in their first flip and they go bankrupt because they didn't have enough money, or this or this or that. That's what happens, and that's how people get sued, because you got people that are great at sales or really good communicators, and they're selling a course. And so that's not what I'm here for. That's why for me, I'm just now getting into putting videos on YouTube. And I have my podcast since 2019, and I'm just now getting on video, because again, I'm not about that. I'm just like, all right, let me provide value. But what I do see, in order for me to reach more people, I had to go to video content. And I know you got clips and shorts and stuff like that, but for me, I think the value is going to be in me being able to rattle off long form content like I'm doing right now, and being able to give buckets and tips, nuggets and tips on what someone can do, and really, really keep them 100. But anyway, I think the first thing you do is figure out what you've been doing the longest, put it on paper. You could be doing multiple things a long time, and that will allow you to create multiple businesses at one time. I wouldn't advise that, obviously, but I'm just saying, say for instance, like I just said, I started doing real estate investing in 2013 or 14. I did that for a while. And then it was probably 5 or 6 years in, I started a lending company. So I'm not saying I started both of these businesses at the same time. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you will be able to go from one, once that gets on autopilot, go to the next. That's what I mean by that. So write down 2 or 3 things that you're super good at that you can do without even thinking about it. And then focus on the one that you've been doing the longest. That'll be easy for you to do in your sleep that you don't have to think about someone. If someone calls you about something, you just be like, hey, what do you need? Like someone calls me about real estate or finances, I'm giving them the answer in 3 seconds. If you want me to underwrite a deal, send me the address. That's all I need. And I can underwrite that deal in 3 minutes just by using Zillow or home.com or something like that. Whatever you're that good at, that should be the number one thing you start and you call that your expertise. You can write an ebook on whatever that is. Again, if it's waste management, if it's special ed education, whatever, baking a pie. Look at all these people that got food trucks, cash businesses, by the way. They were probably really good. Somebody was like, man, your tacos, like I just said, are really good, or your banana pudding, or your whatever is really good. So many people probably told that person that and they turned it into a business. Like my dad gave me a food truck. I can barbecue. From what I'm told, it should be in restaurants. And that's been told to me from people that are Indian, people that are like Mexican, don't matter their nationality. Anytime I barbecue, they be like, damn, that's good. I got my dad's food truck. So at some point in time, once I get other businesses on autopilot, I am going to turn my dad's food truck into a business. And it's probably going to be a barbecue food truck because that's what I'm good at. And if someone were to, come to me and I hire someone to do that food truck, I can really add insight and input and be an expert around that in regards to that particular type of food. And that's why I would do a food truck. That's probably a barbecue truck. So I'm just giving you examples. So like, that's what you should do first to help you narrow down what your expertise is. And then from that point, I think everyone should have a mentor. I think that's the quickest path to where someone's trying to go. You know what I mean? Like some people don't want to ever pay for mentors, and I don't understand that. And the average millionaire has 7 mentors. That's because if this person's trying to get really good at fitness, or they're trying to be really good at real estate, or they're trying to get really good at accounting, anything, like they want to take the path of least resistance. Alex Hermosi says ignorance tax. He would rather pay to supplement the ignorance tax. And that makes sense. Instead of you, trying to go through doing this on your own for 3 to 4 to 5 or 6 years, and then you finally get there, why not pay somebody who's already like myself? Why would someone, if I had a real estate course, would it make sense for someone to just give me $3,000 to $5,000 or $10,000 for them to shave off 7 or 8 years? I mean, that makes the most sense. So instead of you going out here, potentially going bankrupt, or potentially not being able to flip your first property, or run into not being able to get finance, would it not make sense to just get a mentor and just, let them mentor you for like 6 months, and then they'll give you 7 to 10 years in 6 months? I mean, that's a no-brainer. You can't put a price on the fact that if you drop $5,000 or $10,000, that person's probably going to save you not only 5 or 10 years, so they're going to increase your revenue, and they're also going to decrease the amount of money that you lose just by you giving them $10,000 or $15,000. That's why you have people like, again, I'm gonna use Myron Golden or even Alex Hermosi. These people get paid $50,000 to $100,000 by people to be in a mentorship program. Why is that? Because if you could pay $100,000 to make $1 million in a year, would you do it? And that's kind of how you got to look at mentorship. So even with me talking to you about this now, don't be like, oh, he's trying to sell me something. I'm not selling you anything. I don't have anything to sell you. So I don't, except for a couple books and a mobile app. And if you want to sit down with me for some kind of consultation, I do have a calendar link for that. But I'm just telling you, that's how I got into real estate investing. I got a mentor. I paid $5,000 for my mentor. He gave me a bunch of systems. If I would have just stayed the course with what he told me, I wouldn't have had some of the problems that I ran into when I first got into real estate investing. But people don't listen to their mentors. They do what they want to do. And hindsight 2020, I would never do that again. But people that I mentor, or that not like just call that I'm friends with, that I just, give guidance to, they do the exact opposite of what I say too. I think people are just like that. So I'm just saying, like, I think if you're going to do it, get a mentor. Get a mentor. Matter of fact, after this video, I'm going to create a coaching program simply because of what we just talked about. I think people should decrease your learning curve, is what I'm saying. To sum it up, decrease your learning curve. So back to what I'm saying is, if you're going to start these 3 or 4 businesses, depending on the industry that it's in, get a mentor. If you just want someone that's like a business coach, that's great. You're gonna need that too. So maybe not get them all at the same time. If there's someone specifically in your industry, like a cook or someone that's has a cooking business that has a course, if someone has a real estate course, any of those things, just find that and get into it. You know what I mean? But for me, if you want more advice from me, I'll put my calendar link in the description. You can sit down. I'll give you a 30-minute consultation if you want to talk to me about how to figure out what your expertise is. We could do that. It again, I just showed you it'll only take me 5 or 10 minutes to figure out what it is to do with a real estate deal. Now that I'm a master practitioner of NLP, I understand I understand people a whole lot better. So it would only, even before this, I really understood people. I can read people really easily. And that's kind of one reason why I did go get my master practitioner in NLP. So if you do want to sit down with me, it'll take me 30 minutes to dissect what I think you should be doing and what your expertise is. So again, if you want to sit down with me, I do have a little bit of time on my calendar right now because I'm kind of slowing down on the flips that I was doing. Click that link, whatever's available. I will get up with you for 30 minutes. It will be 30 minutes. It could be even less. But if the calendar says 30 minutes and it doesn't say 15 minutes, I'll definitely do 30 minutes. So click the link to set up some time with me, and I'll help you discover what your expertise is. And if not that, I will say one more time, pick up the book, because if you don't got time to sit down and talk with me, pick that book up, go through it. I think it's ebook as well. If not, it's on paperback and hardback. And listen to the podcast, because I do drop a lot of jewels on how people can identify with what their expertise is on that as well. And it's just a good podcast to listen to. But anyway, until next time,